Tomorrow is promised to no one. It is easy to get caught up in the inertia of everyday life, but what is the difference between existing and truly living? What do you have when status, money, and your role are stripped away? What makes life worth living? This is MJ. I love Spider-Man, and it's time to talk about Spider-Man Life Story, issue number 4. So while we look at the cover, I'm going to just open it up and read that. So Chip Zdarsky is the writer, Mark Begley was the penciler, Andrew Hennessy was the inker, and the colorist was Frank D'Armata, and Travis Lanham does the letters. So is there anything else? Oh, again, Zdarsky does the cover, and as I look at this cover, I want to say I like it a lot. I think one thing funny about it is I feel like they were really trying to show his age. So this is 40 years after he got his spider powers originally, so the guy's at least 55, and looking a little thick, looking a little pudgy. One of my favorite aspects though of this cover, first of all, again, all the simplicity of all these covers is so great. But looking at it now after having read the issue, which, again, spoilers for 1 through 3 for sure, and, light to heavy spoilers for 4. So if you haven't read this, I recommend you go get it. It's great, very enjoyable. But that being said, spoiler warning given, I want to go ahead and talk about what I think about it, which is the cover showing a building, big glass building, and the fact that Peter is the head of Parker Industries at this time, and he has been for a while, but he's like a corporate office businessman. There's that glass panel that's cracked. It's cracked over his face. The different Peter, the other Spider-Man on the other side of that, is not in the same exact pose as him. So it's a hint. It's slightly different, but it's a hint that it's a different guy. He looks about the same, frame. His body looks about the same, so it's not like it's totally different, but it leans into the fact that this is really guarding the Clone Saga and Ben Reilly and stuff. But I also feel like it represents like a duality or like a fakeness. Like maybe Peter's feeling like empty or hollow, and I don't know, maybe even like he's a fake, or there's something wrong beneath the surface. Just like this Spider-Man beneath the surface of the glass looks different from him, even though he shouldn't, because they're supposed to be the same. That's pretty darn interesting. I will continue talking about the rest of the issue in a moment. The opening page of the story makes it even more clear that this is, dealing with the Clone Saga. You're in Chicago, you see that you're in Chicago, and you've got a guy who's a photographer. He's got brown hair and glasses, and I wasn't 100% sure at first that it was Ben until, Doc Ock, makes his splash and, informs him that he's looking for the red mask, and I was a little thrown by that, but, once I got that it was Ben Reilly and he had gone to visit May, I guess what I'm trying to say is this, I don't know if let me pull out the comic. Would I technically call this a 2-page spread or not? Where did I put the book? Well, anyway, due to I guess what I was going to say was that I am impressed by how succinct the storytelling is. In just 1.5 or 2 pages, we learn that Ben Reilly is now a photographer, either for the news or I guess the news makes most sense. I was going to say like a crime photographer, but that doesn't make sense. And the lady he's with is clearly a journalist. So yeah, it's not technically a 2-page spread, but this story is told over 2 pages. We also learn, and I guess I'm going full spoilers, that Aunt May is dead, that Doc Ock is seeking revenge, that Ben snuck away from Chicago, or snuck over to New York during her funeral to see her off because he has all of Peter's memories. I mean, we know about that, but he's basically, he's Peter 2.0, and he has all Peter's memories, so he gets all the remorse that, the real Peter Parker, the guy who was actually raised by her, would have. And that's pretty darn impressive. Like, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, no, 3 plus 3 is 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 panels spread over 2 pages, which the traditional classic comic books, I believe, would have a 3 by 3 grid layout that they typically told, or like the earliest stuff told stories in. And this one is similar in that it has 9 pages, but they're spread over, or 9 panels spread over 2 pages, and those images tell all that story in just a select amount of dialogue. And it's really cool. It's really effective. I'm impressed by that. I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say about that. So I guess I'll stop and move on to the next thing. If you're following along with the series of reviews that I'm doing on these, and you're, now we're into the 4th one, I hope you know already that I think this story is great. But I'm not going to belabor that, but I am going to talk about reasons why I think it's great, or things that I find really interesting about it. You've got Peter here, head of Parker Industries. Mary Jane and the children are living in Portland, it looks like. And he, as a wealthy young man about town, even though he's 45 probably at this point, he's even graying a little bit, he has a bat cave for himself. He goes over to a bookshelf, he clicks on something, and it opens up, his spider cave, and he's got all these suits in there. I don't know that we get to see all the suits or just the one. I think we really just get to see the one, but you can tell there's something going on there. And what I find most striking is that this image actually, to me, is very well reflected by the image of Norman Osborn in his lair, I guess, in, where is it, Jersey? But yeah, Norman's basically got the same sort of thing where he's cloistered, he's alone. He is so disconnected from Harry that he doesn't even know what's going on with him right now. He kind of keeps tabs on him, but he doesn't know him personally, and that's so clear when he doesn't have a personal relationship, and that's super clear by the end of Peter and Norman's interactions with each other. But the last issue ended with Mary Jane leaving and Peter sitting alone in a chair, and May was there, and enfeebled May was there, and he was upset, despondent, whatever. And the first image that we see of Norman in this book is of Norman sitting alone in a chair. It's a homey looking chair, looks pretty comfortable. I think the guy's in slippers, he's reading a book, but he's surrounded by a little kitchenette. He's like in a warehouse with a kitchenette in it, and then all this goblin stuff. And he's kind of the inverse of Peter right now. They're both alone. They're both surrounded by, or their homes are their businesses because they have nothing else left. They have living children. They have family that they can connect to, but they refuse to. And that's just shocking to me. Actually seeing the when I turned the page and saw Peter walking in on Norman, I thought, Peter, you have become Norman. This is your future. And that's so scary and so sad. And it really hit me. It was good stuff, good work. At the open of this review, I kind of waxed poetically about how, what are you when everything else is stripped away? And Peter himself, I don't know if he says this to Jessica, Alias Investigations, Jessica Jones, there we go. I don't know if he says this to Jessica Jones or if it's his internal monologue, but he talks about the fact that he, in addition to doing the Parker Industry stuff, has been acting as Spider-Man for this decade or so since MJ and the kids left, and that he is just going through the motions. It doesn't really bring him any joy or satisfaction. He's just doing it, he says, like an old man hitting the gym. It's just his routine. And it's interesting when he is shaken from things by being brought back into contact with Ben, by figuring out that Norman was behind this whole plot to try to trick him and ruin his life. It actually woke him up and it shook him from complacency, and it allowed him to realize what is most important in his life, that he doesn't want to be an old man alone like Norman, like Otto, who's desperately clinging on to existence just for the sake of existing. And I wonder how much of Otto lamenting that he had failed to accomplish so much, or there was so much that he had, yet to accomplish, and that's why he wanted to live. If that helped jar Peter and make him realize that he has so much to live, or he has so much to accomplish in being a father. Like, he never got to be, wow, I didn't think about this till just now. He never got to be a father, or really have a close relationship with his father, because his parents died when he was really young. And now that he is a father, that he has these children who were taken from him when they were weeks old, he has an opportunity to use, or to do something scary that he's never had the opportunity to do before, that he's never really experienced in a very powerful way. And I just think that's interesting. And it's fascinating to me that what ends up happening is that he swaps lives with Ben and allows him to take on the persona of Peter, and he kind of chooses to fade into obscurity because he knows that there's a part of him that wants that. And it's interesting. There's an exchange between them, and Peter says something to Ben, like, or new Peter, whatever, like, you led a quiet life, and I got to be here. And I get that he has a sense of the appreciation for that, because as Peter Parker and Spider-Man early on, before the whole clone thing, I'm sure there were times when he wanted to walk away to just have his life, and in this way he gets to do that. And I think, if I remember correctly, part of what the folks at Marvel wanted to do with the Clone Saga was maybe allow Peter and Ben to share the life and the identity of Spider-Man, so that it was less of a terrible burden, which is kind of interesting. And it's kind of funny that that idea is explored here with with Ben and Peter switching places, basically. And what even is more shocking to me is that they do the clone, Peter was the clone all along, fake out in just this issue. It started here, it's resolved here, and I think that's pretty neat. And then the closing bit where Peter goes back, goes back to his family. By the way, those kids do not look 10 years old. What year is this? Is this just putting us in the 80s? I gotta be pedantic and double check the dates. Anyway, I'm not gonna do that at this moment. I'm gonna let it be. Wow, the idea of Peter getting to have this normal home life is so sweet and so touching and so moving, especially because he was being like a terrible husband and father before. He was absentee, he wasn't there, and now he's taken inspiration from these villains. That's what I wanted to talk about. He's taken inspiration from these villains, and he's decided to not walk down their path. But I kind of wanted to make another one of my non-comics commentaries at the end here, and say that it's interesting to me that Peter does benefit from his experiences with Norman and with Otto, and he can feel empathy for them, and he like, whether or not Norman Osborn still has like the Green Goblin strength, he is still brilliant, and he has a criminal sick mind that he wants to use to hurt Peter and those he loves. He's talking about manipulating Harry and stuff, and in trying to do that, in showing Peter what his life will look like if he only focuses on those who he hates, or on, maybe not if he focuses on the wrong thing, but if he fails to pick up on the right things from people. I guess the point I'm driving at, trying to get to, it's in my mind, and I'm just having a hard time connecting to it specifically, is that all hardship, all obstacles can break us or build us up. They can make us stronger. And I really like that they show that Peter chooses to be stronger. Ben flies into a murderous rage, and he almost beats Otto to death with his hands. And Peter tries to stop him, and Ben says to him something like, did you think I don't have your self-control and your sense of right and wrong? You think I would have actually killed this guy? And that was an interesting thing, because maybe he would have accidentally killed him. I don't know. And we can never know, because Peter did stop him from doing it. But gosh, I don't know why Peter didn't lunge at Otto and break free at that time. Like, was Ben an imperfect clone? I'm not sure. But the real point I'm getting at, while I'm distracting myself from trying to say, is that I talked about in the last review that it felt like a bit of a nod to, and put down of one more day. And I wonder if Zdarsky made Peter make those terrible choices so that he could come to this realization, and to make it a richer, more poignant lesson, because it came with such a cost to both Peter and the reader, to be experiencing this story with him. Because it was funny, after reading it the second time today, I did come away with the realization that, you know what, every obstacle that I face can be something that can make me better, make me, I don't know, more humble, and help me to focus on the things that really matter in life. And I don't know, I feel like I'm going to start blathering too much and just not making sense, so I'll go ahead and stop here. But just it's cool that this gets to be like a fun adventure story about a mad scientist trying to hack two clones, or a clone, so that he can learn a clone and the original subject, so that he can learn how to extend his life. Meanwhile, an old supervillain who dressed up like he stumbled through a Halloween shop, and throws pumpkin bombs and stuff, like that, he gets to that they impart these great lessons to Peter, and that by reading and by empathizing with Peter or whatever, those things kind of hit me too. And of course, it's things that I know, but the great thing about fiction is that it can always remind you of things that you know, and help you to, I don't know, embrace them more, or helps you to see that you're getting in your own way. I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of King David and the prophet telling him the story, and then he gets mad and like, oh, that man should be killed. And the prophet says to him, you're that man. And it's just, I don't know, I just appreciate comics and stories, and especially Spider-Man, for all the good things that are in it, all the cool stuff, and just how much it makes me think about my own life and how I can be better, how I can be just a little bit more like the old webhead. Thanks for sticking with me. Check out mjmunoz.com for more of my work. I talk about tokusatsu and write original fiction you can find there. I'm also participating in Tokutember, making tokusatsu-inspired art for the month of September. I'm an aspiring author who will gladly accept your financial support through coffee. Swinging Through Comics can be found on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and mjmunoz.com/stc. Relevant links are in the show notes. I really want to grow this channel. I just started it. I've had a couple views on each video so far, just a couple, like less than 5. And I think I got 1 subscriber so far since a couple days after I started it, or launched it officially, and I'd like to get a lot more than that. So, maybe spread the word that there's a new guy on the block talking about classic comics that are quality. And I'm willing to toast them and roast them as I see fit per comic. And I have no loyalty, no allegiance, except I like Marvel generally, so I'm going to be exploring that. So if anyone wants somebody who's into the classic stuff and kind of wants to stick to the content more than anything and remain neutral, and use the comics as a launching point for further discussion or for thinking about things, then tell them about me and tell them to check me out. I plan to make this entertaining endeavor for everybody involved, and for at least stuff to come out once a week. Again, like I said, I've got another channel, and I'm a writer, and I've got a full-time job, working overtime and stuff, and I'm doing what I can. So anyway, help me out. Liking, subscribing, sharing, all that stuff is really going to help. And I'm going to go ahead and read to you my little outro stuff that I've supplied. If you had a good time, like and share this, subscribe, and ring that bell to catch me next time I'm swinging through comics.